Well, you guys asked for it, and today we finally deliver. The one and only Randy Blaukat on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome back, friends, family, fishing freaks. It is Wednesday. Happy hump day to all of you. Thank you for coming back here for another edition of the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast. And I'll be honest right now, this podcast today is going to be a little different. Just simply because everybody I've had on up to this point, I have a really close relationship with. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with them on the road, at very least. And Randy Blaukat is not one of those people. He's the first person I'm going to have on here. And I don't know Randy that well personally. I know all about him. I mean, what he's accomplished in his career is amazing, not just at Bass and FLW. The span of his career is incredible. But what he's doing right now might be even more incredible. I mean, he, in the last 1 to 2 years, has started a YouTube channel that is probably one of the fastest growing YouTube channels in fishing. And literally he has done it by just being himself. And when Randy's himself, as many of you know, you may agree with some of the stuff he says, you may disagree with some of the stuff he says, but he does speak from his heart and what he believes. And I believe that's always the best route. And it's showing. I mean, the amount of support he's got, it's not just the number of subscribers. I think he's at like 50,000 subscribers now, or pretty close. But it's people that are Randy Blaukat fans are Randy Blaukat fans. I mean, they watch every single video. I mean, the number of comments and stuff that he gets, it's incredible, the engagement that he has with his viewers. And enough about me talking about how good he's doing on his YouTube. This YouTube would probably be doing better if I just got right to the point, and I'll do that right now. Let's bring him in right now. Randy Blaukat. Randy Blaukat, first of all, thank you very much for doing this. And I'll be honest, total transparency. This is different for me because we don't know each other that well. I mean, most of these that I do, it's with somebody that I've spent a lot of time with. So this one might be the best ever, or the other.
Well, yeah, we sort of, our paths barely missed because, I quit fishing in the top 150s back in 2005 when I made the worst decision of my life and went to FLW and didn't take my Elite Series invitation. But I think we just sort of missed each other there.
Yeah. You're pretty open about that. I mean, when I did a little research on you, I mean, you openly talk about that being the worst decision of your life.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Fishing wise.
Yeah, I was really close. Jerry McInnes and I were real close. We vacationed together and everything. And Jerry had been with Bass and FLW both. And when in 2005, when I got the Elite Series invitation, when it initially started, I had my title sponsorship with Fujifilm, which was connected with FLW, and myself and like a lot of other guys like Clark Winlett. I mean, we had to make the decision about losing our title sponsor and going to Bass or staying with FLW. It was a super difficult decision. And it was one of those I look back and regret to this day for sure.
So it must have been really weird for you a few years later to see all these other guys toiling over a decision that in some ways there is some comparables between the two. You had a bunch of established pros trying to move off to another area. Was there any similarities, or that must have been weird for you to watch?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you try to assimilate all the information that you got at the time to see if you're making the right decision. And nobody intentionally makes a bad decision, but I think what happens is you get older, you trust your intuition a little bit more and your instincts, and at certain periods of your life, you don't listen to that. You listen to the more external parts of it instead of how you really feel about it. But for me, I didn't feel good about that decision when I made it, and that should have been an indicator there,
That's unfair thing in life, I think, really, that anybody's ever really put in that position. But it's no different than any other job, I would assume. You know what I mean? Like, you sell insurance for a living and you make a move to go to a different insurance company. Sometimes it's the best decision you made, and sometimes you regret it.
Yeah.
How different do you think your life would be if you had have made that decision that way?
It would definitely be on a different trajectory because, I would have, fished the Elite Series and, basically had the opportunity to pursue those things that arose out of that as a result. As far as my tournament, part of my life goes, FLW immediately started going downhill, almost like the next year after that decision was made. Lost a lot of their Walmart contacts and the energy, dwindled a little bit. The Bassmaster Elite Series took off immediately. And, I think that from a tournament perspective, it would have been a lot different. But that's the whole thing, man. It's like decisions we make in life, even the smallest decisions have monumental changes later on, I think there's a movie done about that sometime. I can't remember which one that was, but the name of it.
Most movies. I mean, it all comes down like every decision, like literally when you look at how close, good, bad, or different, when things work out in so many ways. I mean, it literally is because you decided one thing or not. And I find, I don't know about you, but the more time I spend making a decision, it almost becomes the worst decision. Like generally whatever I've found in my life and trust me, there's plenty of people that will tell you things I did that were wrong, probably. Yeah. But I found in my life that first gut, that thing you like, I got to do this. The more time you spend convincing yourself to do something different, generally it works out wrong for me.
That's the same on the water or off the water. Either one goes like that. But yeah, it's like I said, there's no telling how what would have turned out as far as if I'd have went that path before. But that's just one of the mysteries of life, that we have to deal with all the time.
So what do you classify yourself as right now? Because obviously you're a tournament angler. Obviously you've got a very credited career, fishing the opens now, trying to qualify for the Elite Series, but whether you like it or not, you're a YouTuber now. I mean, the growth on your channel has been amazing. And not just the growth, but the following. Like you have a very hardcore group of people that follow, that watch every single one of your videos, it seems.
Yeah, it's really, I'm really happy with the way things are right now. The tournaments for me are sort of like, they're like icing on the cake as far as everything else I got going on. The YouTube channel is doing really good, almost ready to hit 50,000 subscribers in a couple days. And I've only had the channel up for like a year and a half. And like you said, a lot of it is just, I'm very polarizing. It's just like, I don't really hold back what I'm feeling or talking about. And a lot of people, they like that. And some people don't like that. I have to just kick people off the channel all the time because I get some crazy hate mail, or crazy hate comments out there. And that's the case anytime that you have an opinion on something. You can't be all things to all people, but the YouTube deal is a big thing. And then I've been working with Johnny Schultz at Fish the Moment for the last 2 years. And Johnny and I have a lot of projects going on. We build lake map breakdowns for all the lakes across the country. I could do that. It's literally something I could do 24 hours a day if I had the time to do it. And then the tournaments, one of the things the tournaments have done, it's like, I love the competition. I still love competing in the tournaments, but it gives a lot of social media content. And for a lot of guys out there, the advent of social media and the impact that it's having on their industry, it simply gets more impressions and more eyeballs in tournament performance. I mean, somebody can win a tournament and they don't get as many impressions on that win as a 25-year-old YouTuber that's walking a farm pond or something like that. So the tournaments to me gives me a lot of YouTube content. It still feeds my competitive juices, makes me feel alive out on the tournaments there. Obviously I wish I was, fishing the Elite Series at this point, but it's still, everything's working out pretty good right now.
So do you think in some ways the YouTube was a result of almost frustration? Like when I hear you say like a tournament, you win a tournament and not get as much exposure as a 25-year-old kid at a farm pond, which is 100% true in some situations. So did you turn to YouTube being like, I'm going to have to throw my hat in there, or why the interest in YouTube? Or was it just simply like everybody else, you got to be everywhere?
I was, to be honest, David, what I was trying to do when I started this, like, almost 2 years ago, I was just trying to come up with something to bring more value to my tournament sponsors, because since I wasn't fishing the FLW Tour, since that went under, wasn't fishing the Elite Series, I had to do something to provide value to those sponsors. And that's why I just created the YouTube channel. And I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I am low tech. Everything I do, even to this day, is on my cell phone. I don't know how to edit it. And when I started it, it's like, man, I don't know. I don't have drones. I don't have music. I don't know how to edit. I said, probably nobody's going to want to watch this. So I just got talking like in my tackle room or something, just low tech, nothing on there. And I got all these people started commenting on it. It's like, man, I really like that format. I really like the simplicity of it. I don't need music. I don't need drones. I just want hardcore hogging information. So I've sort of developed a base around that a little bit, as far as low tech, old school type of a deal, So and most of my demographic out there is probably 40 to 65. So that's sort of a lot of people can relate to my age on that.
Which isn't the biggest demographic on YouTube too, which right. Really stands out as interesting in itself. And I think I find it frustrating as a guy who's worked to produce TV my whole life, and getting bigger cameras and better shots and all this. I find it frustrating, but it's a true fact of social media that there is something about just setting a camera up and just talking to it like you do, and it builds a relationship with people. And I think it's one of the advantages. I think honestly, if your channel tomorrow, some genius came along and said, hey, let's spend all sorts of money on this, I don't think you'd see the results the same. Like I think people like the genuine kind of feel of it. Is it as genuine behind the scenes as it is in front of the scenes? Because literally to me, it feels like Randy wakes up and puts his camera on a tripod and talks to it. It has a topic, probably an outline, but basically, is that as simple as it is, or is there a lot more thought that goes into it? I meant.
No, there's like zero thought that goes into it. It's like I have to film these videos based upon everything else I got going on, because we got 3 young boys here at the house.
Yeah.
You guys watch it. You guys see my 4-year-old son Elijah he barges in all the time. That's always going on. So it's just, I try to just do it whenever I can. Sometimes it's 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it's in the truck on the way to the lake. It's just whenever I have the moment to do it. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about from day to day. I just sort of wake up and it's like, okay, what is something that people can use right now to help them catch more fish? And I've got so many years of fishing under my belt that I've got all this information in my head. And that's what the cool thing about it is, to be able to relate that to people. And I kept everything a secret for so many years. I was like one of the guys, and a lot of guys are still out there, that we didn't share anything. Everything that we learned, you kept to yourself. But what happened to me is my YouTube started. I was starting to make enough money with YouTube that it was becoming a lot more than what I could even win in tournaments. So it's like, I'm saying to myself, it's like, why don't I just share everything I know about fishing? Because I can make more money doing that than if I went out and started winning tournaments. So a lot of it was from a financial standpoint, and it was sort of difficult to release all these secrets that took years to develop. I mean, a lot of these things that I share are things that have come through decades of just frustration and just experimentation, just myself on the water, that I've kept close to me. So, but it's like, now it's like I said, what's the difference? If I want to fish tournaments to earn enough money to pay my bills, and if I can do it better with YouTube, why not give it up? So that's sort of what I'm doing right now.
No, and it works. I mean, people want that genuine, that real information. And I think one of the words you used earlier, and I love that you used it about yourself, because several times I've used it about people, the word polarizing. And several times it's blowing back on me. You know what I mean? Like you said that I was polarizing, and I do not look at that as a negative. I look at that as a polarizing person is somebody you can't look away from. Whether I agree with what you say or disagree with what you say, I respect enough about what you say that I got to hear what, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
you're polarizing. And I think that where did there's sometimes you say things that upset people.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of sensitive types out there, and there's a lot of people out there that they don't really have the ability to have like a respectful respectful critical thinking conversation on any topic. They get offended extremely easy with that, and that's the thing about it. It's like anytime that I bring up the slightest topic that is considered controversial, even though it shouldn't. I mean, if I bring up my fact that I don't like live scope, or if I talk about climate,
I had never heard that before.
Yeah, or if I talk about climate change and how it's affecting the bass, or I did something on the COVID vaccine, it's like, man, you cannot believe the people that'll come out of the woodwork, and you think, man, there are some crazy people out there. Some of the stuff they send me. But that's the way it is. Anytime that you voice an opinion on it, I don't care what it is. It could be you liking chocolate chip cookies over whatever. People are going to say that's the most stupid thing I've ever heard. You're going to have a segment of the population do that. It's the same with you. I mean, you're a public figure. I mean, you've been out there a long time. You probably, have experienced to some extent. I think anyone that does, that just comes with the territory. You can't please everybody, but, I don't mind if I talk about something that people consider controversial. I want to hear their opinion on it. I want to hear their opinion based upon, fact, critical thinking, truth, without being emotional about it. And let's have a respectful debate on it. But when you call somebody like a stupid idiot just for voicing an opinion without backing that up, that's sort of weak,
Well, I think one of the negatives of social media, one of the positives of social media is, for the first time in history, a 19-year-old kid has the same power or same voice as Coca-Cola or any brand you want to compare it to. That's an amazing thing, but it's also a negative thing because everybody's got a voice, and generally, even if it's a negative voice, you throw that negative out there, there's going to be people that will gather to it. It's actually one of the weird with building this podcast. It's one of the weird things that I've messed with, where I don't want to be, there's enough crap in the world. There's enough, you know what I mean? In my opinion, I'm like, this is an hour a week that people can come and just have a conversation. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's happy, but always you leave it, feeling like you learned something or whatever, but not with the mudslinging, and that always goes to the top in social media, I find. You know what I mean? Like if we opened this interview and I said, let's go one-on-one and on how much you hate forward-facing sonar, and if I'm all positive for it, this will get a lot more plays than this conversation, but it's not all about the plays, I would assume. I mean,
I think it goes back to the whole concept of being entertained over being educated. And, social media it's a very interesting study into human behavior. I've learned a lot about people since I've been involved with it. And that's one of the things that I've learned about it is people want to be entertained. They do not want to be educated. I mean, that's why, like in YouTube, that's why the titles are so critical. Because let's say, for example, I did a video yesterday on how to Texas rig worms, something like that. And I put a title up there, something about 95% of the bass anglers don't know how to rig a worm like this, which people look like that's sort of weird. But if I would have said how to rig a Texas rig worm, nobody would watch the video. So there's a fine line between, like, you got to say something that's a little bit edgy to even get people to tune in, because if you don't, nobody's going to watch the thing. So it's like, I don't like to have to do that, but it's just sort of it's sort of business, I guess the way to put it.
No, I agree. It is a weird line. And by even titling it like that, you're asking, you're almost goading on people that disagree. You know what I mean? Like he said, 95% of bass. Well, are you kidding me? I've caught bigger bass than, I'm sure you've heard it all.
I've heard it all, man. That's why I try to do, a couple times I do videos just on, I try to share some of the hate comments I get because people get a kick out of that too. So, but it's something, I've never had anybody confront me in person ever. I mean, a lot of people, they have a lot of courage behind a keyboard, but they really don't when you're standing face to face with them too much.
And I find a lot of times when you do respond like you do, they're shocked. A lot of times people are like, well, I didn't really think you'd answer this or whatever. And you're just like, well, do you really think that the fishing industry pays that well that we have people to answer our stuff? I mean, it might for some, but
yeah.
So I do have to hit on that one topic though, that you brought up, forward facing sonar. And here's where I'm stuck on that. How can you be a tournament angler, which is the cutting edge and then be against that at the same time? I mean, it feels like two worlds are colliding almost. Like being against it, does it not put you at a disadvantage?
Well, it's like people think that the people that follow me think that I'm like some dinosaur that hasn't kept up with technology. But I was fishing tournaments and winning tournaments back at Grand Lake in the late 1980s, with triangulating offshore structures and fishing, finding with a flasher like David Fritz does, and won a lot of tournaments like that. But as the technology progressed over the years, I gradually pulled away from that technology because I saw it losing a lot of the stuff that I talk about, which is the intrinsic value that fishing brings as far as a therapeutic healing, the puristic aspect of it, the mystery, the magic that goes along with fishing. And I think once you lose that, once you get out there and you lose the magic and mystery of not knowing what's out there and not knowing if you're going to catch them or not, I think it takes away a lot from the sport. And, I think a lot of people can relate to that because in the videos I do with it, I get 80% of the people or more. They say, man, I totally agree. This is, live scope sucks. This is, I get a lot of support. There's a lot of people that agree with me. And then there's the 20% out there that say, hang it up, you're a dinosaur. Time for you to retire. That's why you suck so bad. That's why you hadn't won a tournament in so many years. I get all that too. But I just think that at some point with this, and this is a passionate subject of mine, at some point you got to say, when is it enough? I mean, at what point do we say, okay, guys, we've crossed the line here. This is too much. This is not what this is not what fishing is. We got to get back to our roots a little bit. Every other sport does it. Every other sport has equipment limitations. They try to maintain some type of tradition on it. But in my opinion, I mean, as long as the electronic companies and the tournament organizations are subsidizing each other, there's no incentive for people to back off of that. But here's the thing about it. There's things that can be done. You could even implement stuff like, okay, you can use live scope or down imaging, side imaging, whatever in practice, but in the tournaments, you're limited to 2D sonar, or have events where there's no live scope tournaments. You could work your way around that, but I don't see it as a good thing, man. I don't. I see it as something that's taken away from what the sport's really meant to be.
And to simplify it, I mean, basically you just mean that moment of not knowing, right? I mean, that's what it's taking away. I mean, because you can see the fish, but it just that, I mean, and there is truth. I mean, catch a fish off a bed, that's fun. Catch a fish that you don't know is going to hit, it is a whole different feeling. So I will admit that, and I don't have a side, to be honest. I just find it intriguing that you, who wants to be on the Elite Series, doesn't like it, and I'd be like, well, it's torn, but it also maybe tells me a lot about you as a person, that you have enough scruples to say, hey, I do want to do this, and I know that it would make it easier, but that doesn't mean it makes it right.
Well, here's my point. It's like the year before last, I finished 13th I fished all the Bassmaster Opens, finished 13th in the points. Every fish that I caught that year was with 2D sonar. And I lost enough fish during the course of the season to easily have made the Elite Series, to probably won the point championships that year if I'd have landed everything. So that told me right there, it's like, you don't need it. I mean, you do not need it. If you focus on your strengths as an angler and look for that type of water, you don't have to have that to compete. But for me, it's not really about me, because, man, I've had my day in the sun. I've won Bassmaster tournaments. I've, made 9 Bassmaster Classics, a bunch of Forestwood Cups. I like to see other people doing well. So for me, it's more of a principle thing. I'm not at this stage in my career. It's just like, I don't care if I win another tournament, but I do want to leave something behind, as far as maybe just make people think a little bit, Not that I'm ready to hang it up, because I still love tournament fishing. I really do. I hate the traveling that goes with it. And you do. I think that's something you get burned out more as you get older. But still, as long as it makes you feel alive to be out there, you should probably still do it.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me to see some of the longevity of some of the pros that have been around. I mean, you're not even close to, like when you look at Rick Clunn, you're like, man, I got years ahead of me to do this. It is amazing, but I think that's also who Rick is. Like a farmer's a farmer. He's always going to plow. And a fisherman's, that's Rick. Like, he's got to crack that code.
Yeah. And, if Rick didn't fish tournaments, he would just be a shell of a person. I mean, that's what his love is, with that. So, and here's I think one of the things important to remember: when you hit 50 years old in tournament fishing, there has not been a single angler that can transcend the natural course of events that your performance goes downhill. Look at Kevin Van Dam. I mean, everybody thought he was just, completely untouchable. As soon as he hit 50 years old, he just became just sort of like an average, professional angler. Almost every single one, I mean that with respect. I mean, I got a lot of respect for Kevin, but what my point was is, when you hit 50 years old, it's not physically that you lose anything, although like maybe your eyesight gets poor, you need reading glasses. But what happens is you lose that imagination and creativity that you had when you're younger. And imagination and creativity is more important than experience. If experience was everything in fishing, guys like Clunn and Larry Nixon and those dudes would be impossible to beat. But that's why you got somebody like Jordan Lee that can kick, guys like Rick Clunn that has, decades more of experience, but because they still have that childlike mind they can experiment, and they're creative and they're imaginative. And that's what you lose when you get over 50. You get locked in. You've had so much success doing a certain thing that you're almost physically unable to make that transition back to that child mind. And nobody has transcended that yet, that has hit that mark.
I never thought about it like that.
They'll have moments of greatness. I mean, I'm not saying you just completely go downhill, but you cannot maintain the level of performance that you had during that period of like 30 to 40. I mean, the period of 30 to 40, you're at your intellectual, imaginative, spiritual height as an angler, and then gradually that just goes downhill. That's why you'll see, eventually the Jordan Lees of the world, the Chris Aldanes of the world, they'll all start, fading by the wayside. It's just a progression of events, and that's okay. That's just life, man. That's something we got to accept, and with grace and dignity, but that's just the way it happens,
And when you explain it like that, in my head, I'm thinking and I'm comparing it. I don't know why I always do this, but I always seem to want to compare analogies outside of our sport, outside of fishing. And I'm thinking, and you're like, it's not that abnormal. Like, if you look at, I don't know why I'm obsessed with insurance salesmen in this show, but I used them once as an example. But if you look at a group of sales folks, I bet you that 30 to 40-year-old person is there. That's the one that's on the rise. You know what I mean? And I think it's also because other things become more important. I mean, life becomes more important. You realize when you become 50, I assume you start to realize I'm pretty close to that. And I'm already starting to realize that it's life moves on, and you realize how important moments are. It's a really good point. But I want to hit on one thing with you too, that you do that I think is pretty cool. And I'm a big fan of the mental side of the sport. And I know one of the things that you do is have some mental videos just on the mental outlook. And one of the things you had recently was being present, which is something to me. I use the hashtag enjoy being all the time on posts all the time. And that's exactly what that means. Enjoy being, because for so long in life, we're pretty lucky to do cool things, and you get so busy, and you don't stop enjoying. And the only thing that really matters is that moment. So that's why I kind of live by that, enjoy being. But explain to me your thought process with that, and when it comes to angling.
Well, I think that's one of the things that is one of the hardest things for humans to do, is to be present fully, because we're bombarded with so much stuff that we need to do or we've done before, and you just don't fully experience the moment. And in fishing, it's completely important, because it's not only the actual cast, but it's also how you spend your time on the water. Because if you're not, like, when you say, for example, if you make a cast out there, from the time you make that cast, from the time that bait hits the water, if you're not completely in tune and focused on what that bait is doing, and imagining and picture that bait coming across the rocks and the bottom, and maybe spooking a crawdad, and maybe picturing the bass looking at the bait and getting close. If you can't be absorbed into that cast 100%, then you're not living up to your fullest potential as an angler. The great anglers can do that. They can block out everything and be right there at the moment. And that's just something that is an exercise, and that's why a lot of the top fishermen out there, they can't talk while they're fishing. If you got a marshal or a co-angler that's a talker, that's the worst thing to pull you away from that present. It's almost like each cast is a meditation sort of with that. And another thing about being present with that is conditions change on the water. The way the environment is on the water at 9 o'clock in the morning is completely different than it is at noon. You have different sunlight angles, light penetration's different, wind can be different, temperatures, and you have to be present in that particular moment to make the correct adjustments on your fishing, whether it be technique, color, retrieves, angle of your cast, locations, all that type of stuff. And you can't do that if you're thinking about the 3:30 weigh-in, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you got 2 fish in the live well, and you're going to look like a fool coming up there with 1 fish. You're in the future at that point. So it's one of the hardest things to do in fishing. It is. It's easy to talk about, and it's easy to wrap your mind around, but to actually execute, it's hard.
Oh yeah. It's easy to say focus on the cast, but tell me about focus on the cast at 2 o'clock when you have 2 fish in the box, and you start. It's just human nature. You start, but I guess that's what makes greats great. That ability to block all that out, and just focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, and one of the most difficult things about it, and the Elite Series anglers don't have to deal with it because they have marshals, but one of the most difficult things to do with that is if you have a co-angler, because if you have an aggressive co-angler, there's nothing like an aggressive co-angler that will take you out of the moment, because you can, if you're seeing his bait land 3 feet away from yours every cast, you're not in the moment. You're not fishing your cast. You're distracted by, your co-angler with that. So there's a lot of challenges out there with it that come in many forms.
So it's funny to me because we started this whole thing talking about, how you just do these videos when you have time, and whatever's happening behind you or whatever, it doesn't matter. I guess that just is your ability to focus on that particular moment. I totally agree with what you're saying there about being in the moment. And I think it's one of the smartest things to do, not just for fishing, but in life, because we all spend way too much time worrying about the past and worrying about the future. And while we're doing it, we're wasting the present, which is,
And when you do that, you miss out on so much. Yeah. I get pissed at myself a lot looking back at my life so far about how much time I wasted not being in the present, about worrying about something that I thought was going to happen, or thinking about some injustice that happened to me in the past, and you weren't appreciating living here now. So that's one of the great tragedies. I think that should be taught in school, that people should learn that discipline early on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things they should teach in school. Like, Here's an idea. Let's get rid of geography. I know it's great. You should learn about the world and teach kids how to fill out their tax returns.
Yeah.
Important things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never used any algebra whatsoever in my entire life, and I wasted a lot of time doing it.
I had a huge argument with a teacher once because to me, I mean, I've always, the one thing I've been good at is talking. And I wasn't good at a lot of other subjects. And I always was like, well, why do I need to learn math? Because, you know, there's calculators. And I remember this teacher's thinking, so you're going to carry a calculator everywhere? And I have wanted to run into that teacher for so long and pull up my phone and be like, as a matter of fact, it's not just a calculator. It's a camera. It is, you name it. It does all of these things. But I guess if I'd have focused in the moment back then, I'd be better at math. But I was too busy trying to get out of it.
Yeah, same here. Actually, the only reason I graduated math in college was I had the guy sitting next to me. He was like an algebra genius, and I was like terrible. I mean, I struggled in it like no other deal. But he loved to fish and didn't have a boat, so we worked out a deal. He tutored me, and I took him fishing, and I passed my algebra in my physics and algebra in college because, you know, we worked that deal out.
Fishing can get you a lot of places. What's next for you? What's the goal? I mean, it's a new year. Everybody makes resolutions. Do you do that? And what's your goal? Like, what's the 5-year plan for you?
Well, my number one goal right now is just really growing this YouTube channel. I really like doing it. I mean, that's the whole thing about it. It's rewarding. I enjoy it. It's fulfilling. It's creative. So that's my number one thing on my plate right there. And then I'd love to win a Bassmaster tournament, get back in the Classic, man. It's been a long time. So that's definitely on the agenda, although that's sort of like winning the lottery anymore. It's so tough to do that. But the YouTube for me is sort of the big thing moving forward. Also, you know, working with Johnny Schultz at Fish the Moment. Johnny's great, and he's got a lot of stuff on the plate there, a lot of creative ideas on his own YouTube channel and his website. So partner with Johnny, and you know, the YouTube is going to be the big deal moving forward.
How'd you two come together? Like how did this partnership, friendship, everything come together between you and Johnny?
I've known him since I first met him when he was 8 years old. He was like the national kids champion. He dominated high school fishing, and he came to a lot of the tournaments, and he befriended a lot of pros like Clun. I mean, he does stuff with Rick with Fish the Moment now. Yeah. And, you know, I've known him since he was 8, and I hadn't seen him for about 7 or 8 years. And I was down at Table Rock fishing about 2 years ago. And when I took my boat out of the water, he was there at the ramp. He'd been fishing, and we got talking and this and that. And he told me what he was doing with Fish the Moment, and sort of invited me to partner with him a little bit on it. And we've been doing it ever since. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, it's worked out really good, I think, for both you guys. And I think it's worked out good for all of us in the fishing industry because you guys pump out some great content. And I thank you for doing that. I thank you for pumping out content that makes people think too, because I mean, and I'll be totally honest. I mean, one of how this whole thing, how we ended up actually doing this actual show, I went back in our correspondence, and it started because I apologized to you for a comment that I made on YouTube, because you made a video about, and in my defense, I had COVID at the time. So I was probably a little grumpy. But you made a video about how you don't want a foot pedal on your bass boat for your back, was your point. So I don't know. Somebody posted on there, and I put on an amen or something because somebody was complaining, like, what is he complaining about now? And I did that, but I owned up for it. Messaged you when I got out of my COVID stupor, and I said I was wrong because I actually watched the video, and afterwards I was like, well, as much as it bothered me, you made a really good point. So that's ultimately, I guess, what we all learn from these. Is,
well, that worked that good then, yeah.
Most people don't admit to crap like that, but
I know, that was cool, man. I wasn't offended anyway, so that's cool.
Yeah, but and I didn't think you'd be offended. I mean, I just thought, like, I thought about it, and I was like, I mean, I shouldn't have done that. I just, because I'd watched the video and afterwards, and I was like, oh, well, now you look like an idiot, so you should own up to it. I mean, I learned a long time ago that people will put up with idiots as long as they own up to it. So I owned up to it. And
I think a lot of people on YouTube, I think they comment on the titles more than watching the video. Most of them don't even watch the whole videos.
So what should I title this one? You seem to be good at coming up with some titles. What should I call this particular one?
Oh man, God, there's no telling on that. I guess it depends on if you want to, how controversial you want to be.
We'll figure something out, but I do appreciate you doing this, and I appreciate everything you've done for the sport. I mean, I've been a fan of yours from back in the day, and to watch what you're doing now and to watch how you've evolved says a lot about you as a person. To evolve as an angler from, there's a lot of people of your generation that are literally curmudgeony, you know what I mean? Complaining about YouTube, complaining about having to do social media, but you found a way to do it your own way, and it's worked out incredibly well.
Well, I appreciate it, Dave. And hopefully I'll get back on that stage and you can talk about a giant bass I'm holding up on stage one of these days, but if I can just get another win under my belt. So we'll see.
Make it happen. I would love to see you. I'd love to have you on the Elite Series, but it's tough now.
Oh man, it's like the lottery getting in there.
It really is.
You can't have a bad day to make it. I mean, you can't even have one single bad day to make it. You got to catch them every day.
How do you think that should change, or do you think that's just the way it has to be? Or I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Oh, I've got a bunch of ideas if you want to hear it on that.
I'm gonna bring it. I'm not scared. I mean,
okay. Here's my if I was like in charge of bass, right?
All right.
What I would do is I would open up the Elite Series to 150 pros, 150, okay. And I would take half of those pros half of the pros that were in the Elite Series were there because they were in the top 75 of the all-time winning, a combination of the all-time winnings or classic qualifications, have some type of a system based upon performance from classic qualifications, bass wins, all-time winning money leaders. That makes the 75 elite right there. There's 75 elite people. And then the other 75 give them the opportunity through the Bassmaster Opens, to qualify every single year and have a little bit more of a turnover.
Also 75 stay, but 75 requal. Like you've got 75 that stay, and then there's 75. So half the field and 75 that are new every year.
Well, those 75 that are there through performance is going to change because, that's constantly going to change with people moving up on the winning list or moving up on the classic qualification list. But therefore, that makes those 75, that still lends credibility to the circuit as the elite. And but right now, to pick only 3 people off of 200 plus anglers per circuit is sort of like the lottery, and I sort of feel like right now the Elite Series is extremely difficult to get into and extremely difficult to get out of once you get into it. So I'd like to see a little bit more turnover on one side of it, and then maybe a little bit more of a protection for the guys that have supported bass over decades and proved themselves through performance. I think the public would appreciate that too. I do. I think that'd go over well with the public.
Yeah, and I don't think that the system's perfect right now. I mean, because look how hard. Look at what you've accomplished, and look at how hard it is to get in. And it's not just you. And if you don't think it's hard, like just say to you, go look through anybody's tournament standings. Just look through whatever you want, the Opens, the Elites, FLW, and then tell me how many times each angler finished in the top 3 for Angler of the Year in any circuit. You know what I mean? Like
it's a once in a career year. You have to have that one. Basically, you have to have 3 tournaments of a lifetime to make it with that. And the cream always rises to the crop. I'm not saying that, but if you could take somebody like Van Dam, and there's no guarantee that he would make the elites again to finish in the top 3. I mean, if he came back over to try to do it, that's what I really admire about Iaconelli this year. As much as that dude's got on his plate, and to come back and qualify for the elites, that's a stud right there. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think I've said for the last several years, the guys that qualify don't get enough, like just for qualifying, like just they don't get enough credit for it. But to do it like Iaconelli did it, or even Hackney did it the year before, you know what I mean? To show up for 1 year and get it's almost unfathomable,
But you're going to have guys like that. You take guys like Hackney and Jason Christie and Scott Martin and Iaconelli. Those guys are freaks of nature. I mean, they're at the 1%, and everybody else is not at that level. They're simply in a different class of anglers, and you can go down on the Elite Series down to the mid part of the pack or the lower, and that gets more into the reality of what it is. But when you're talking with a handful of those guys that are marquee anglers, they're in a different universe, than anyone else.
So what do you say to somebody if their argument back to that is, well, that's exactly how it should be, that the 1% should make it through and it'll be the ultimate of the elite?
Well, as far as the qualification,
if somebody wants to argue to keep them the way they are, they want the 1% in there, do they not?
Well, yeah. But then you have the argument is, how much do you want to pull in tradition or history into the sport, and how much do you want it just to be a constant influx of people that nobody's ever heard of? I mean, there's arguments to both sides of it. I mean, you can look at the PGA Tour, that happens to some extent too. But nevertheless, when you're talking about a business model and where you want to draw in, potential members for Bassmaster or, people that support it, they want to see the old dudes there. These guys that have followed some of these people that have got a following, there's a lot of value to that. I mean, so it's there, you can argue the point either way on there. I just, one of the things that I've always bothered me about the qualification for the Elite Series now is you can take somebody that has had very little tournament experience under their belt, and they have 3 good tournaments. They just happen to string together 3 good tournaments, and they're set for a career from those 3 tournaments. Where you had somebody else that has been in the trenches for decades and decades. Take somebody like Charlie Hartley. That dude has solid fisherman. He's been in the trenches forever, and he hasn't been afforded those opportunities that some dude that just had 3 good tournaments happened, maybe one in his backyard or something like that. So it's tough, man. It's just like you said. There's no easy answer to it. You're always gonna offend some people and make some people happy off of it.
Yeah, no, and I, like I said from the start, I don't think it's perfect. Like I think that a big step in the right direction would be more guys qualifying through the overall. Mm-hmm. First of all, that always has been, and that's not just that's for the guys too, because you've got people qualifying, like you said, that fish 3 events, and generally that doesn't bode well when they come to the elites.
Yeah.
They've been tested. If you qualify through 9 events, you've been tested not just financially, emotionally, geographically. Like you've traveled across the country, you've proved you can hang and catch fish in all these different areas. So I do think that I would imagine that it will continue to evolve, and I would like Randy Blaukat in the Bassmaster Elite Series. Okay,
I'd love to be there.
Let's do a vote or something.
Here's the thing they could do. Bass could take a poll of the membership, and they could put you could put 75 old school dudes up there that have been in the sport for a long time, and then put 25 or 75 young guns or new guys. They don't have to be young; they can just be somebody new, and have the membership vote. Who do you want to see in the Elite Series? Who did the fans want to see? And then how can you argue with that, man? If they're the ones supporting the organization, buying the products, buying the sponsored products, you got to listen to the fans, man.
But I'm just scared that we'll end up with like the Googans in the Elite Series. That's all it'll be. It'll just be like the Googans, and every other big YouTube star will be in the Elite Series. And none of us.
No, I'm telling you, it'd be a revisit from the 1990s, man. You'd have that. That's where you'd have all the 1990s guys in there. I think. I think it would be cool. I mean, I think that that's the one thing that I hate about the growing the sport, or whatever you want to compare it to, with the division in the sport, because I think we've gotten a little bit away from those kind of cool creative things. You know what I mean? You've got a bunch of companies that are trying to stay alive, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like they're all
cannibalizing each other's sponsors, and that it's tougher to have. Like, I think we need cool events like that. You know what I mean? To bring guys back. And even if it's not just for the Elite Series, just a few events or something. I mean, I would be a huge fan of it. I mean,
I think one of the coolest things Bass could do is they could have a tournament and invite anyone that's ever won a Bassmaster tournament to it. Tournament of Champions, that type of thing. I don't think that's ever been done, has it?
No, I don't think so. And it'd be interesting to see who would come back.
Yeah, you might have Bill Dance back in it, and guys like that.
Yeah.
Basil
Oh yeah, Dusty Pine.
Yeah, Dusty Pine. That'd be great, man.
That's the cool thing
I would bet you the ratings on that show would be higher than any Bassmaster show of the year, except for the Classic, if they did something like that.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, but that's, to me, that is also the answer to the age-old question, that everybody toiled a few years ago about bass and where the future. And all those names, when you throw out those names, that's what makes you fall in love with bass fishing. You know what I mean? Like, all of that. Winning the Bassmaster Classic is so amazing today because you've watched it be won so many times. Yeah. You watched it when you were your son's age. You know what I mean? And that's, you can't change that. The Kentucky Derby is the Kentucky Derby, and the Bassmaster Classic's the Bassmaster Classic. And Basil Bacon's Basil Bacon, and Randy freaking Blaukat is Randy Blaukat.
Well, the Classic, nobody will ever transcend the Classic. They're living in a fantasy world if they think that's going to happen. So that, I think we need that. I think bass provides a stability within the sport that is much needed and respected amongst the world. And I don't like the way that it's just, we've lost track of how many dang circuits are out there. I don't think that's good for the sport. I think that it waters everything down. And I think that bass plays an important role with that. And the Classic is the centerpiece of that stabilization.
It's the Classic's everything. Really, it is. Like, when at the end of the day, it's everything. That's why everybody fishes at every single level. What did you look, everything you've accomplished in the sport, and when I said, what do you want to do? You're like, I'd like to make it back to the Classic. I mean, it's just that feeling. Once you're there once, you gotta do it again.
People don't realize that, because in the 1998 Classic, where I finished third, and I was leading the tournament with two more people to weigh in. And when you're in that position, you're leading the Bassmaster Classic, two people to weigh in, 20,000 people in the stands. There's a surreal aspect to that. And I can only imagine what some of these, like the people that play concerts of 70,000 people feel like. Oh, wow. And there's an addiction that comes with that. And after you've had something like that, you're willing to do whatever it takes to sacrifice, to, sever relationships. It's like a drug once you've experienced that. And for those of us that have experienced that, it's like, that's why we still do it. That's why I'm 60 years old, still out here fishing tournaments, man.
It's an amazing deal. And, I've never even fished the Classic, and I just know that, like, when I retire from bass, I'll always still search for that feeling. Like, when I walk into the arena still to this day, like, but with nothing's going on, when I just see the stage for the first time, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. You know what I mean? Because it's the Classic. You know what I mean? Like, I really do hear Ray Scott in the rafters. You know what I mean? Like, it's to me, it's. And I think that that's the one thing that bonds us all together, though. You know what I mean? That's why we don't even really know each other that well. This is the longest conversation we've ever had. Can have this because there's that one thing that we all, like, I get it. Like, I know what you feel, and you know what because it's just a weird.
Yeah. It's an energy unique to itself, for sure.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Every sport probably has that too. The same guys that make the World Series and get to play in the World Series or whatever. I mean, I've got this friend of mine that he played in the Super Bowl back in the late 70s or something like that.
Yeah.
And that his life revolves around that one event. It's like that was such a powerful moment for him that it's like it just his life centers around that. So
it's an amazing but it all goes back to the same thing. It's history though. Like I think that's what makes that, like the Super Bowl is always going to be important just because of that. Like, you know what I mean? It's just the years of, and I think that's also why you see people get emotional too when they win big of it, because it's everything you've overcome to get there. And it's so freakishly rare. The percentage of success in this sport is so freakishly rare. I think that's what kind of drives everybody, but,
and there's been a couple classics that transcended all of them. When Clun won in 84 and 90 both, those two wins right there, that did something for the classic that just sort of solidified it in history like that. If you were at the 1990 classic, you know what I mean? It's like something happened at that arena that, just put it on a different level. So there's been a handful of them like that.
What classic stands out to you in recent memory? Do any of them, or are they all older ones?
Man, not as much recent as the ones in the past. In the past, it seems like to me that the last one that really stood out as something that was just like above and beyond anything else was when Clun won that 90 Classic. I mean, being in the arena in that tournament when he pulled in there at that last day, it was a surreal situation. It was just, and I haven't seen that duplicated yet. Each classic is unique to their own. I mean, each classic has got a storyline that's appealing and attractive to everybody. But one of the ones to me, I guess, is when Edwin Evers won the tournament at Grand Lake. That with that 9-pound bag the last day. I mean, I grew up fishing that spot he won the tournament in my 14-foot flat bottom. So for him to fish the same log jams that I'd fished before and to win the classic, that was an incredible feat to come back with the 30-pound bag and win the tournament.
It was incredible. And I wonder, and the reason I asked you if there's any that stand out recently, because I don't think it's a fair analysis. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's some of the magic is being lost with technology. You know what I mean? Just because everybody knows, like the magic that you would have felt when Rick Clun pulled those fish out, nobody really knew. Like the chatter, they might have, but I still think that moment of not knowing is really the magic with our sport. You know what I mean? Like when people say that you got to see the weights and whatever. No, it's that moment. It's the sitting with your head between your knees, wondering, do I have enough? It's that anxiety that builds in you that makes that moment so special, I think.
Yeah, we don't have that anymore I mean, we've become so good at videotaping the tournaments that suspense is gone. But I guess on the other hand, that's something that creates it all throughout the day. I mean, you can watch it, follow it all day long instead of just for 30 minutes at the weigh-in. So it's funny. Back then, everybody was like, wait till the day when it's on TV or the day when you can see it and you don't have to wait a month for the magazine and this. And now you're like, back in the day when you didn't get any of this information, that was real magic. But or back in the day when they didn't even know where the classic was going to be till they got on a plane. That was the old school. Oh, I'd love to do. I mean, it's just so impossible because the event's so big now. But I mean, I still think that is the coolest thing to do. Yeah. I wish we would do that again. You couldn't do it for the classic, but for some kind of different event. Yeah, definitely. But that's it. We can't talk anymore. This is too long. We're gonna people are gonna turn it off. So I'm bad at ending these things. So here's how I'm gonna end it. Will you come back on here again? Because I really do enjoy your outlook on things. Yeah, I'd love to anytime, man. All right. Well, now hang up on me or do something controversial so we can get some clicks on this. I'm all out for tonight. I'll think about something. Maybe on our next show, I'll come up with something. All right.
thank you very much for taking the time, and thank your kids. I totally expected we'd have some kid run behind at some point.
Yeah, well, they're in the other room there. They got the door closed, so I think Kim's keeping them rounded up in there.
All right, well, go and see your kids, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Dave. Thank you. Bye.
Well, I owe it. I owe a thank you to all the humpers out there that pushed me to book Randy Blaukat on this show. Me and Randy may not have talked much before this show, but I really enjoyed our conversation today. And I got to thank Randy for coming on here. I mean, I reached out to him right away. He was supportive to do it. And I asked him, is there anything you don't want to talk about? He's like, no, open book. And man, he proved that by opening up the interview, talking about literally the worst decision he made in his fishing career. And I'm not calling it that. He calls it that. And I love the way he called himself polarizing. I mean, I've used that adjective for other pros in the past, and they took offense to it. But I don't think it's an offensive term, and I think it's a perfect adjective for Randy Blaukat. I mean, he is polarizing. You may not always agree with everything he has to say, but you want to hear what he has to say next. And thank you. I mean, I appreciate you being open and honest on this show, Randy. And that's the way the world needs to be, really. I mean, you don't always have to agree with everybody's points, but we should all be open to hearing everybody's points. And I'm open to having Randy Blaukat back on here anytime. And I would like you guys to thank him. And how you thank somebody in the social media world is give him a follow. Jump over to his channel and subscribe to Randy Blaukat's channel. And while you're at it, hey, give us a subscription and a like and all that kind of stuff. And we'll be back here pretty much every day this week. I mean, whether it's a short, a fishing tip, a podcast, our news show, FYI, basically we upload something every day for you to waste time on. So come on back here and waste some time. Have a great week. Enjoy being, and Uncle Bob, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmaster told you to. You hear?